Kita balik ke game 2-nya guys ya. Ini udah unggul 1-0 Indonesianya. Indonesia lagi-lagi ban respect ban untuk giginya, terus banet. Dan untuk Filipina ya juga tetap si bannya tetap Pani sama Atlas, sama hero-hero rusuh. Atlas tuh hero rusuh.
We did see Soriano pick that Beatrix. It's a signature pick. He's known as the Filipino sniper ever since he picked up that Beatrix at M3 when he displayed the crazy accuracy on the runner. Right? He also went on to get the finals MVP at M3. So whenever you see a Beatrix, especially on this Filipino side, you just expect them to find a lot of success with it, and they did early on. They utilized the Beatrix really well by clearing out the waves faster to
biar bisa ngamanin si Melissa
going for that efficient macro gameplay by rotating together as a team. The Ube strat that we've seen so many times before worked up against Indonesia. We watched the replay and we saw what happened. What
Valentina
led
masih
up to that flank from SAYKOTS that turned the game around. It was when Soriano stole the orange buff, and when he walked down to the mid lane, he did not check the bush. And this is something that I mentioned is very uncharacteristic for Soriano. Usually on the runner, he shoots at every bush, He doesn't leave any bush behind. He tries to open it up, and sometimes even after shooting it, he walks in just to check. And that's the little mistake. That's the little moment that actually ended up being
mengamankan KJ untuk first picknya.
The sole reason, I believe, as to how Indonesia were able to come back.
It's definitely the turning point, right? It only takes one moment for you to lose a game where you've been dominating for about 10 minutes. This is why the Mobile Legends is so exciting. The game's pace is insane.
Akan kasih Venus menggunakan hero signature-nya yaitu Estes ya guys ya, kita tunggu aja ya. Sepertinya akan menarik jika Estes muncul ya di pertandingan kali ini ya.
I mean, the Beatrix, man, it's at this point you see a Beatrix, it's synonymous with the Filipino sniper almost. It just comes to mind. So this is definitely something
dia mengamankan
that the
Philippines
will try and use again. And we already
sama
mentioned earlier
tapi emang gila
that
si Patrick
diverse
ini kalau yang bakal
choice of
Philippine
weapons allows the Beatrix to do different things. Burst people down, clear waves, right? Poke people from far away, take down turrets from far away as well. So just like that, it has been picked up. And if you look at Indonesia though, that Farsa ban, I think they're trying to curb the range from the Philippines, because that is something that the Philippines absolutely use to their advantage. The kite back and that range advantage to poke down, slowly but surely, the members from Indonesia.
To add on to that, we already know that the Farsa is just a signature pick for Imam in that mid lane, but Indonesia will go for the same pick. You pick up the Beatrix, we'll take the hero that countered that Beatrix, that was able to give the Beatrix so much
seperti yang tadi
so much problems
ya
in game
diharapkan
number
sih kayak tadi sih
with the
dia
Yuzong now picked
yang
up, they are
buka.
going to go for the Eve as well.
Kali ini
And
mid
with this
lanernya
Eve, it does show that they are
si
really
Yivi
trying
ya.
to stop this
Bagus
Beatrix from
nih
being
area,
a problem.
main area.
Soriano on his comfort pick once again, but is already getting countered by two heroes technically right now.
With the right item builds, 2 or 3 bolts from the real world manipulation will be enough to zone away to get the Beatrix low enough that he will be out of the fight. And to make things worse for him right now, the slows here will allow SAYKOTS to catch up with anyone from the side of the Philippines that much more decisively. So the utility game is definitely on point on this Eve pick.
Agreed.
And if you think about it, I think it's going to be very difficult for the Philippines to try and dive in towards the side of Indonesia as well. So the kiting game that the Philippines have been abusing so often has been slightly countered by this utility from Indonesia. It's a very smart option.
The Mathilda though, they're still going and opting for the same pick as game number 1. But like we mentioned, Philippines don't really need to change their drafts. What they need to change, in our opinion, after the game, after we spoke about it a bit, is how they took that game, how they executed their game plan. Because it came down to that 10-minute moment, that moment where Soriano did not check the bush. That moment gave Indonesia a chance to turn the tides, and this time Philippines need to be a bit more disciplined. They need to stick with what works. Don't change the course of action by going for these team fights that are technically, or literally unnecessary with this team composition. They can disengage really well, they can siege very well, but you can see right now with the Melissa ban, Philippines
Nah,
are already
game satu tadi
changing
kan,
just a little, just a few things.
I think we're gonna
eh
go for the front two backs because I was about to say
apa itu?
in the previous game
Yang
they
pakai
made sure
BRANZ
BRANZ was having
kan
a difficult
gila sih
time. They
Melisanya
made sure
sih.
that Soriano was the one
Jadi
having a great
respect
lane.
ban sama si
But in
Philippine.
due to that action,
Takut
SAYKOTS was able
keepers
to
lagi
actually
kayak
be
tadi kan.
relatively impactful in the game, despite a very rough early game
Loadingnya
as well.
sih
So
masih
maybe
lepas
I
ya.
was thinking that they might just change their area of focus. But now
Bisa
with the
kalau
ban
UT
towards
bisa
BRANZ here, it seems
irrital
like
juga
they are
masih
planning on
bisa.
doing the same thing, just better, just cleaner.
Well, in game number 1, they banned out the Leslie and the Claude. So that means with the Melissa ban, one of those heroes will be
Wah,
left
ban
open.
Valentina.
Leslie and Claude, which are
Leslie
both
juga
lethal on the
masih
hands of
free
BRANZ,
sih.
right? And
Tapi nggak tahu
looking
ya
at how
kalau
he
ini ya
played
di
the
ban ya.
lane,
Nah ini
honestly, I do feel like Philippines
Filipina
might want to
ngeban
give
si
Indonesia the
Leslie-nya nggak tahu
Claude,
lagi
ban
sih.
the Leslie, right? Because Leslie will create more problems for them, especially if BRANZ gets to farm as he usually does. He's so good at playing it slow, farming to get those power spikes. And now we're going to have to see what they go for in the bans right now. And Rashi, what do you think it's going to be?
Ooh. Valentina has been banned away from Indonesia, by Indonesia actually. So Philippines, they won't have that kind of flexibility available to them. So it's interesting to see what
Nah,
exactly
kan?
will be the solution,
Dan si
especially
Cloud
for that
kan,
lead.
si
Not a lot of heroes
ini
can
kan,
match that
Philippine kan?
mid-range coming in,
Bisa
that long
retail
range
sih,
artillery
bisa
and
retail,
utility.
bisa
So they might
Leslie,
just go
bisa
the opposite direction and go for something aggressive,
masih bisa.
something that can just be a
Jadi
big
udah masih
problem,
OP
a
kan.
big kill pressure,
Si
kill threat
itunya si
for that
Leslie.
Eve. On the side of the Philippines, though, they go for that Claude ban instead. So Leslie is the option that they would rather face, Mirko.
All right. That's something that I personally don't agree with, right? I expected them to ban the Leslie because
same.
in the later stages, this Leslie is going to
Tinggal
create
ini
more
sih
problems
si
for them.
mid laner
Remembering that Philippines already have
sama
a taunt, already have some CC, and they already
SPL-nya
have
apa sih
very good
Philippine?
disengage. With the Mathilda, the Claude won't really be able to catch up in a lot of these positions, right? But I feel like Philippines are
lap-lap
looking at it
depend.
in another way. They're looking at that Eve, they're looking at that Divine Judgment from the Kaja and the Furious Dive, obviously with the Petrify from the Yuzong. All these three heroes can lock people down for the Claw to deal so much damage, and this team fight hero is going to fit really well in Indonesia's composition. So Philippines, they're already changing a few things here now, hovering over the Faramis to go to the mid lane into the hands of
Nah,
Imam.
lane-nya
And this will
apakah si
definitely help
Faramis?
them because the Faramis was also one of the reasons as to why they weren't able to melt the Indonesian members down.
Not just melt the Indonesian members down, it's also the reason why they lost that fight where they were able to keep, Indonesia was able to keep BRANZ alive using that cold altar. And of course, off the back of a very great play from BRANZ himself. But with the
Ternyata
Faramis
dia pakai
in the picture,
Faramis untuk mid lanernya.
Philippines have a lot more utility when it comes to actually actual survivability. They have a lot of saves, a lot of shielding, and now with the cold altar, that extra bit, that second chance at in the middle of a big fight. But for Indonesia, having more control on where the Philippines can maneuver around, that might be a better solution. They have banned away the Lapu-Lapu as well, so the dive potential from Philippines is very, very minimal, and we have to see what exactly will be the choice here, because for the Philippines, it seems to be the same thing. Front to back all the way, abuse range, save our core members, and just like that, the answer from Indonesia, Leslie, and now it's the Akai.
Well, now
Sama
considering that they
Leslie sesuai
have
perkiraan ya guys ya,
these
dia
two
pakai
very
Leslie ya.
vulnerable backline heroes, they need something like the Akai to provide a bit more
agak late game
peel
sih kalau
cover for the
Leslie sih.
team. But Philippines respond with Grok in the jungle for Del Rosario.
What?
We mentioned that
Ini
he
nih
likes to
guys,
go
yang
for some
jadi
crazy picks sometimes.
apa
The
ya,
Valentina,
mystery pick-nya
the
Philippine
Guinevere as well in the
untuk
jungle.
junglernya.
While he's trying to pull out the
Apakah dia
Grok in
yakin
the
untuk
jungle
pakai
now
Grok ya, guys?
here
Nah,
in
jadi
IESF. Last time we saw it, it was high.
It was high, and it's just a very, very interesting situation here, because earlier in the game number 1, we saw that for Indonesia, they had an assassin, right? And that assassin was critical, because in the late fights, you saw that Soriano was just unable to get anywhere safe. He was chased away by the Black Dragon form, and he was deleted by Taz on the Gusion. Now, with an Akai instead of a Gusion, can Indonesia get the same kind of pressure onto Soriano?
masih
Well,
tetap
that
Indo
answer
berarti
will,
guys ya.
that
Kita
question will be
dukung
answered
Indo
very, very soon
Pride.
as we enter the game, Arashi. But this
Kita
time, I think we
percaya
can
lah
agree
ya
that we
sama
want
mereka
to
ya
see
sebagai
the
wakil
best of three
Indonesia
go
ya.
all the way.
Oh,
So this
absolutely.
time, me and Arashi will be predicting
Optimis
Indonesia to
bisa
win, to
untuk
use the caster curse
mengajar
to get
si
the most
Philippine.
value out of this incredible
Wah,
series
gila, guys.
of Indonesia versus Philippines. Once again, as we
Junglernya
jump into the land of dawn,
jadi
with Taz
drop, guys,
starting on the orange
hari
buff,
ini.
and Del Rosario doing the same on the
Di
opposite
XP
side.
lane-nya mereka jadi flash screen ya
Slow
guys ya.
start for both these junglers. They are tankier junglers essentially. So they are going to be playing a lot more for utility. But I guess Taz on the
Villa
high
Lunanya
can
sih
be a lot more aggressive.
berani
Just like
banget
that,
sih.
you can see
Si
that the
ini
Philippines
my
really
Venice
enjoy
nih.
using Villa Luna to get a lot of information
Wah,
and just
tinggal
be a big
separuh.
nuisance. And you can see the response coming in from the Indonesian players. The Philippines already dictating what the movements are going to be.
Both teams again just fighting for that mid control that is so prio, so necessary now in this current meta. Both Taz and Del Rosario are looking to go for this lethal wanderer, but it does feel like
ini agak
Indonesia
berani
will
sih
have a
si
bit
apa,
more of an advantage with the faster wave here in the
junglernya
mid lane. That's the
Evos sih.
lethal wanderer
Soalnya
secured
kan
by
dia agak
Taz,
tebel kan
getting him a
pakai
bit
AK daripada
more
tadi
XP and gold to play with. So they'll
PKS
have that power
yang
spike very
notabene-nya
early
agak
on,
empuk
already at
gitu
level
kan.
4.
As we mentioned, the wave clear game is now being a
Dia
lot more
bisa
monitored, a lot more
survive
managed
ya.
by the players from the side of Indonesia.
untuk
They've suffered from it once.
berani
They are
ngambil
not
junglernya
trying
musuh.
to suffer the same fate again. So right now, they're just moving around, and I think before the first turtle spawns, it's going to be relatively slow. But as I say that though,
Uh-oh, there you go. That's the
Ooh.
barrier with a wild
Bakal
charge.
mati sih.
SAYKOTS now going to be caught. First blood over
Oh, dapat
to
dua.
Philippines.
Gila,
But
gila.
look at Taz.
Bisa, bisa.
Able to bring the members
Mati
back
tuh.
in with a heavy spin. Del Rosario going to fall.
Nice,
The
nice,
jungler for the XP lane. And Dop
sayang
will
dia
be forced
flicker,
to
guys.
flicker out of there.
Flicker mati
Luna
tuh.
a bit late on this rotation to match up against the Indonesian mid laners.
Ayo lo,
But it is
mundur
still
lo.
just going to be a 1-for-1.
so 1-for-1. So
Okay.
both teams now holding their own, but this is where things get a bit hairy. The first turtle, where everyone has their ultimates,
Harusnya join
we have to see who
semua.
can actually weave in the better team fight.
No ultimate for Del Rosario just now. Taz gonna go for it.
Oh,
Will be able to
goodness.
secure the
Mantap,
turtle
mantap.
with a brilliant retribution.
Si Faramisnya
Dreams
udah
gets
ulti ya.
knocked up, but Philippines decide to back
Udah
off. Now
dibuka.
Dreams flickering forward, gets the Divine Judgment onto Imam, who's able to flicker away. SAYKOTS has the Black Dragon form, looking for
Gak
it.
jadi, guys, gak
Decides
jadi.
to zone the Filipino
Tadinya juga masih
members here
cooldown dia ya.
and backs off.
Back away, and we can take a look at
Kalau ada
how
Petri itu bisa di
the changes have
Petri
impacted
sama
this
mati tuh.
Paramis, right?
Minimal
The Cult Altar
orang
was
lah.
used in that fight, and with one single
Si
spell,
BRANZ-nya sih
the rest of
enak
the
ya.
team from Indonesia is able to melt down that HP bar. So it really isn't an all-win team fight solution, but it is very situationally used to help save members from big burst damage.
Now it's a complete change from game number 1. Imam, though, going to be immobilized. That's the
Mati.
damage coming
Mantap.
through. Woo. Sniped down
Lur.
by BRANZ, but the kill will go over to Hijume. BRANZ sacrificing a bit of gold there in the bottom side, but will still be able to catch up down below to pick up that cannon minion.
With stronger laners on the hands of the Indonesian players, they are now able to actually match the aggression, the fights, the skirmishes from the members of the Philippines. And now you can see that the Kaja pick is just having a lot more impact. This is what they wanted to do in game number 1, but the macro play coming in from the Philippines was able to deny that. That won't be the case for this
No,
game
masih
though.
berani
And
kan
now this
si
becomes a contest
Tasnya
of
kan.
proactivity. Who can have the higher work rate, the more
Mantap betul guys
versatile
dia guys.
maneuvers,
Jadi ya
and
berani dia.
just the more proactive
Ini
plays.
di
And
zoning
this is the
si
reason
apa?
as to why
Si
I felt like the Leslie
Patrick-nya.
should have been the one, the hero, to be banned out by Team
Leslie-nya biar
Philippines. Because you can see
leluasa sih farmingnya
on
untuk
this Leslie, sure,
plating
you're
ke
very vulnerable, but you also
towernya
are
musuh.
really good at actually going at duels up against the Beatrix. I would actually say in a 1v1,
network masih
it's
selisih
skill dependent,
ya
but
1000
Leslie
lah.
has a bit of an edge. Why? Because he doesn't need to target any of his skills. It's not a skill shot. Meanwhile,
Si
for
Pedas itu masih
the Beatrix, you need to go
ya,
for those render
ya,
shots to
masih
actually be able to
unggul
compete in
sih
that range
lumayan.
battle.
They have to be careful though, because Soriano has the Blade of Despair completed. It will be a big factor in the next fight. The Turtle is being pressured for both teams,
Dan
but it
ketika
seems like
commit
the Indonesians will have a bit
untuk
of a lead in the
Oh!
control.
turtle-nya guys.
Divine
gila,
Judgment and the
limitnya.
Petrify. Imam gonna be able to pop the Cult Altar. Taz
Nice, nice, nice.
against 3 members, still able to
Oh,
secure
bisa
the
mati
turtle
tuh,
right
bisa
now.
mati dua tuh.
SAYKOTS jumps in with the Black Dragon form, zoning the backline away. Dapadam gonna be pinned down onto the wall with the heavy
Mantap,
spin,
guys.
and that's Hijume who picks up the killing spree. Everything going well for
Turtle
Indonesia,
dapat,
and everything
kill
going
dapat.
wrong for
Langsung beda
Philippines
3000
in the
guys.
early
Guys.
game of game 2.
They lose a member to the pickoff. They lose a turtle to the steal. So Indonesia is completely taking over and looking completely different. Is this a momentum thing? We'll just have to see. Hijime with the Ice Queen's 1 right now will ensure that the Filipino members need to be a bit more careful, even more careful in how they want to position. They've been getting caught out without that slow as well.
BRANZ has just been farming up a storm.
Indonesia dicuri guys sama si Patrick.
Full turret gold, clearing waves constantly. He should have more gold than Soriano here with the assist that he got as well. But here in the mid lane, the bottom side river, Del Rosario going to be chained up again, and that's the pin down with a heavy spin. Del Rosario going to fall for the second time in this game. Dreams with another divine judgment over to Imam as that's the Nibiru's passion dealing no damage over to Taz, who jumps in again. Soriano zoned away, but the damage coming from BRANZ, shooting him down. Dap finally rotating towards that bottom side, but it's a bit too late once again. Team Philippines falling more and more behind as we go and progress into the game.
The Philippines are having very much trouble trying to manage distance because they're being slowed an insane amount. At any moment, it starts with the slow and then it gets followed up with the divine judgment, with the heavy spin. So Indonesia's pickoff game is going exactly how they want it to. And right now, they also have the advantage when it comes to range, and also when it comes to the late game. They have that artillery with the real world manipulation, and they also have the Leslie. They can do a lot of true damage, up to 2k in a single hit. And in the late game, Soriano will have a lot of issues trying to get any impact done in the middle of a big team fight.
There's so much CC from Team Indonesia. There's a lot of survivability from Philippines, but they need to be able to utilize that crazy engage from the wild charge. And right now, it just doesn't feel like they are going to be able to. Taz there going for the turtle. That's going to be the real world manipulation that was locked into for Soriano to flicker out. They baited out the Cult Altar and they baited out Villa Luna into the other side of the wall. Mid lane turret going to be sieged down. BRANZ looking just to poke the Filipino members, but it's a good disengage by both teams. It's still a small victory for Indonesia with that turtle take.
Look at how much movement, how much of a reaction you can see from the Filipino players whenever SAYKOTS is on the map, whenever he makes an appearance. He wasn't even popping the Black Dragon from initially, and everybody was walking backwards in fear of that engage coming through. And when you are so focused like that, you are not looking at Taz with a heavy spin. You are not looking at Dreams waiting for that divine judgment.
What I want to look at is definitely the items here for BRANZ, because I wonder how much gold he's actually gone this game. So far, he has been left untouched to free farm. And he's getting so much damage. That's going to be the flicker over to the Divine Judgment as well to find Del Rosario. The true damage does its work. BRANZ picks up the kill. Dapadap trying to look for a re-engage now, but only taunting Taz. Look at the poke put down by BRANZ. Dream's going to be in the midst of it all right now, as he is going to be able to dish out some damage to zoning the members away. Dream still there with SAYKOTS from SAYKOTS with a petrified to find Soriano and the furious dive to get Imam low under the tier 1. Gunned down by BRANZ. It's a 2-0 trade for Indonesia.
Unreal execution coming in from Indonesia right now. We thought that SAYKOTS was the main distraction. He was the one coming in from behind. You barely notice it until it's way, way too late. Let's take a look at that replay right now. The fight was breaking up. There's a lot of action back and forth, and SAYKOTS out of nowhere. The tower doesn't even matter because it's way too low. Indonesia able to actually push Philippines into a very uncomfortable position, and now with all the advantages when it comes to crowd control, when it comes to damage, they are looking at a cruising victory in game number 2.
This is insane.
Unreal.
That's the word you can use for it, right? So much doubt for this Indonesian team after they qualified to represent Indonesia with only a week to prepare right after qualifying. Still able to play super well. And now they're rotating towards that top side. Taz soloing that lore. Del Rosario caught no one there to help him out. Has to use the wild charge defensively and will lose out on a lot of HP. BRANZ still is able to get out. Has the flicker. They're going to go in for another re-engage here. Just some poke down onto the frontliners. And you can see that true damage, Arashi. I really wonder what the items are looking like right now, because the damage is pretty unreal already in 9 minutes for a Leslie.
It comes with a true damage, and when you're concerned about the true
Si
damage,
Leslie-nya
you can
udah
actually feel the burn
tadi
coming in as
Vesper
well.
Fury
Look at the items, as you mentioned.
harusnya enak sih.
The Windtalker, the Endless Battle as well, allows him to get so much more burst damage initially, and after that, the Berserker's Fury allows him to dish out a healthy amount of DPS. On the other hand, you can see the Yves, right? Hijumi with the glowing wand, all these tanky members are
dapat tower
taking
bawah sih.
percentage HP damage whenever he's
Si Evosnya.
dishing out these spells, and they are absolutely spammable. And the siege game is dangerous for
Philipina
Philippines.
going to be caught in that real world manipulation. Imam as well zoned away. The wave manipulation from Indonesia, absolutely
Dapat
phenomenal as
lagi
they are going to be able
bawah
to
sih.
use the lore down below to pick up
Si
a turret.
Sevennya zoning
With
biar
SAYKOTS
nggak
and other members away with the Black Dragon form as well. That's base
ganggu
turret number
lordnya
1
buat
taken
ngancurin
down. Top side
bawahnya
pushing
guys ya.
in, but Indonesia will decide to just
Dapatlah bawahnya.
play it
Bisa
slow,
menang, guys.
clear out the mid lane and reset.
They have an absolute advantage when it comes down
Pride.
to those siege situations. Having the Yave, having the Leslie means that you do not have to go and force those fights because there's no other way for the Philippines to dish back that kind of damage. Soriano
sih
is
si
the only solution they
Lestinya
have,
enak nih,
and at
guys.
this point, when
Farming,
the only
farming,
option you have,
bebas.
when you only have a single option, it becomes very easy for your opponents to try and adjust to that. But the Philippines, it seems like they are not willing to completely concede control just yet. They need to be very careful though because the flank game, that flank
Si
game is just
Filipina
so
udah
on
nggak bisa
point for
farming
Indonesia right
sih.
now.
This is what we saw in game
Sulit
1,
mereka.
only just the opposite happening here in game 2.
Beda berapa?
Indonesia having
Beda 3
control
level, guys.
the whole 10
Sama
minutes
Kroknya.
early on. Philippines with a very similar flanking position here to
Concealed.
look for something, but it's going to be a concealed play from Indonesia. And oh my god, Dream right to Divine Judgment onto the best possible target.
Satu.
Soriano's out.
Lesti.
Dapadap has the
Lesti.
flicker out, but SAYKOTS chases him down with a passive. Dapadap still surviving here. Only one member
Mantap
taken
sih,
down,
si
but that
Prince-nya
might
nyulik
just be the
Patrick
member
sih.
that Indonesia needs to
Si
pick up some
Lestinya
more
udah
base turrets. That
sakit,
high
guys.
ground control is no
Dapat
longer
singitnya.
available for Soriano. Dapadap trying to go in for some damage right there, but it's actually be petrified from Imam.
Gila.
He's going to be
Lestinya,
taken down.
guys.
The wild charge in desperation.
Lesti.
Villaluna in the back has to back off. It's an absolutely insane game and an insane performance from
Gila.
Indonesia
Di luar
as
dugaan,
they knock
guys.
Philippines down to the
Indonesia
lower
bisa mengalahkan
brackets.
2-0 Filipina guys ya.
How? What? Oh my god. We have no words left right now.
Mantap.
How was that possible?
Pride, guys.
That is insane from Indonesia. The awareness to know where are the members from the
Mantap.
Philippines, who to
Selamat
target
guys buat
in the
Indonesia
middle
yang
of
udah
everything
menang
against a team
di
as